Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today we have a big show. If you were not here yesterday, the first day of NFL free agency started, we are going to have a more calm, cool, collective head about it today. We're going to go through some of the big moves that we didn't cover in depth yesterday, along with there is still some breaking news. It's slowed to a trickle at this point, but there was a massive contract signed not 30 minutes ago with the Indianapolis Colts. We'll get into that in the fourth segment, along with any other breaking news that breaks while the show is going on. We had a massive trade last night, that being Brian Birds being sent to the Giants and receiving a 5-year, $150 million contract. There is a lot of money there. We'll break that trade down, winners, losers, as well as some other minor trades that happened yesterday. And in segment one, we are going to talk about the running back market. The running back market, which has done a complete 180 since last season. We've seen guys now, I believe 5 or 6 guys get signed, traded, or moved in the last 24 hours. So we're going to go over the running back market a lot. I find that really fascinating to see how it's working. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about where Justin Fields stands right now. After that first day when 4 or 5 quarterbacks went off the boards to 4 or 5 quarterback-needy teams, where does that leave Justin Fields? Does he even have a place to be a starter anymore? We'll answer all that in just a little bit, but before we get too far into it, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen there. We'll have a little talk about what you had to say. Your message will be there for everyone across all platforms to see: YouTube, Twitch, X, everything like that. We'll have a little conversation. We appreciate anything that you do give. Again, that link to leave a tip or donation is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, let's just get right into it. Segment one, we're going to talk about the running back market. And this is something that, at least for me, is the most fascinating part of NFL free agency so far. Of course, you have your major stories with the quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins signing that massive contract in Atlanta, Russell Wilson going to Pittsburgh, a couple other quarterbacks. They're always going to get the headline because the quarterback is a huge position. But the position that's been the most fascinating to me, at least, while covering the NFL free agency so far, has been the running backs. If you remember back to last year, 3 or 4 of the top running backs in the league were franchise tagged. That being Saquan Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard. All 3 of those guys were franchise tagged. And Jonathan Taylor in there as well. Although Jonathan Taylor did end up getting paid mid-season, so he's not part of this list anymore. All 3 of those guys have now gotten big contracts elsewhere. And it's not just them. Derrick Henry was a free agent running back. He just got paid today. Joe Mixon got traded. Aaron Jones got signed. There is a lot of guys out there, a lot of running backs specifically. Austin Eckler got signed as well. These are guys that last year would have been thrown to the side, cast away, oh, they're too old. And now they are getting these contracts. Now, they're not massive contracts by any stretch of the imagination, but these are big-name guys that are getting contracts. Now, Saquon's was a big contract. I believe it was like 12 and a half a year or something like that. So that's pretty good for him. Everyone else was below 10. And that's kind of what we expected out of the running back market. But the fact of the matter is the running back market is popping. Every single player here is getting signed. And we'll start right there with Saquon. Saquon Barkley got signed by the Eagles, leaves the Giants. There's been a whole Twitter beef about it with him and Tiki Barber. It doesn't matter all that much. But the reason I think the running back market is having this, I guess I'll call it a resurgence, has to do with the fact that it has to do with what Christian McCaffrey did last season. I think the running backs would be in a worse position than they are without Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey being top 3 in MVP voting, arguably should have been the MVP. I don't think he should have, but you can make that argument, and you could make it convincingly for what he did last season. Christian McCaffrey has saved the running back position for at least a couple years. The running back position was in probably the darkest place it has ever been last offseason. They were being avoided like the plague. Everyone was like, "Oh, you can just get a guy out of college to replace the production." And for a lot of the time, they weren't wrong. They did get these young guys to replace production in a lot of places. Um, but what Christian McCaffrey did really, I think, sheds a light on how important the running back position can be. It's not just a position of run the ball down the middle 20 times a game. It's a very versatile position that can really turn your offense, add a whole new dimension to your offense. I think the running back position, it's never going to be that grind 3 yards in a cloud of dust that it used to be. Nowadays, it's going to be you have these guys that are fast, are athletic, can tote the rock, but also have receiving skills and can make you miss on the edge. Like kind of like a tight end that has more agility, I guess is the way to put it. Because what they have to do, what running backs are asked to do is crazy. You can't just eliminate that position entirely. And I think what Christian McCaffrey did last season, what Saquon did to a lesser extent last season, basically keeping the Giants afloat when they were a mess of an organization, it really has rejuvenated the running back position as well as Jonathan Taylor. He came back about halfway through the season with Indianapolis, and he really made a big difference in on that team. They almost made the playoffs. They were one pass away. It wasn't the running back's fault, but it's done a whole 180, and it's not just these big names. Smaller names like Zach Moss are getting paid nicely. Devin Singletary got a nice payday. There's a lot of running backs out there that are finally getting paid. And it's, like I said, it's nothing jaw-dropping. It's nothing like, oh my goodness, they really gave that to a running back. But it's good to see them start to get paid again. It's a step in the right direction. And there's two ways to look at this, right? The first way is running backs are saying, okay, I understand this is the market, and we will take what we get. That's one way to look at it, and I feel like it's a little cynical. The other way to look at it is running backs are getting some respect from front offices again. They're not being avoided. So time will tell whether or not this is going to be a trend. The cap is only going to go up. Players are only going to keep getting paid more. And one thing here about this show, Sports by GSMC Podcast Network, is we're all for players getting paid. No matter what I say, backbone of the message is players get your money. We're here for it. We support the players. But really only time will tell what the running back market is going to turn into, if it's going to be a viable market in the future. It's interesting to see because we're at a pivotal moment. This happens every generation. The game changes and it shifts away from something, and now it's going towards passing. Running backs used to be the big stars of the league. That's why you saw so many kids growing up wanting to be running backs. That's going to happen less and less now. And the running back position, I guess the golden age, I guess this probably would be the bronze, I don't know. It's not the golden age of running backs right now. The golden age of running backs was 15, 20 years ago. But we're kind of at the end of that, where we're still getting some elite running backs, but a lot of those guys that would otherwise be running backs are transitioning to wide receiver or tight end or something else that isn't as physically intensive and is getting paid. So I'm curious to see. I think these next couple years are going to be crucial to see how the running back position evolves, because football is changing. Sports constantly evolve. We see it I think basketball is the most obvious example of how sports evolve quickly. People about all last week were talking about the 90s basketball and how it was so different from today. And it is, and that's because it's a different sport. We talked a little bit about that as well. If you want to go check that out, that is on the YouTube channels. But the game changes, and people start to focus on different things, and they idolize different players in different positions, and then the game continues to shift in that direction until something changes again. So I think these are very pivotal. This is a very pivotal time for a running back position to continue to be strong. I think running backs are vital. You see a lot of teams. I know Isaiah Pacheco isn't the golden goose of running backs, but what he does for the Chiefs is so valuable. A running back, regardless of how prominent they are, is one of the most important positions in that offense. I would go as far as to say it's the second most important position behind the quarterback because they touch the ball so much on offense. They're the guys that you give to get that 1 yard, to get those guaranteed couple yards. They're the guys you turn to say, hey, you're not going to get us a super explosive play, but you are going to get us what we need. You're our guy that we rely on. You're our crutch, and that's what running backs are to an offense. And you need a good crutch. It's very important. But on the other side of this break, we are going to move. We're going to continue talking about some football. We are going to move into some more free agency news. Some breakdowns from before and breakdowns of what we're looking at ahead in the NFL season. Thank you everybody so much for sticking around through this break on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. We will be right back.